the main point that I hear is that, in the New Testament, there was resistance to the grace message, the new covenant, because, like Mark said, these pastors think, well, it's a license for lasciviousness. It's for if it feels good, do it. Whatever, it's grace, you're free. But that's not what it is. So that's why Mark presents it presents the blood and righteousness through Christ, rather than speaking a lot about grace, because there's a lot of resistance. Okay, so I think it's pretty tells us to be as wise as what, and as gentle as whatever. So you know what I mean. Be wise, okay? Anyway, so I want to welcome everyone to Grace Christian Church, and I'm here from Florida to come up and preach. I know I was going to be here. Tuesday I have to go for that real ID thing. I'm not even sure if I'm going to do it yet. I'd be down in Cape May, down by John Ionetti. So I have to go get that real ID. And so I'm here. And I wanted to share with you the experiences I had over the past 2 weeks in Uganda and Europe, and 3 months preceding that. Okay. So John Ionetti said to me the other day, and a few people have said that. They said, John, you've really changed. Yeah, I got a beard. You see that? Okay, that's how I changed. I got my Ugandan beard. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so that's our project Uganda. Oh, by the way, I wanted to welcome a lot of people here, because we have people from Uganda. We have 3 pastors from Uganda that don't even know each other. Now they know each other. I introduced them all to each other, which was pretty neat. How did we get 3 people from Uganda, 3 pastors that don't know each other, coming to our church in New Jersey, in Manalapan? How does that happen? Okay, well, anyway, we know how it happens. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the missions over there in Uganda and what's happening. And I'm doing that to encourage everyone, because everyone that's on here now is a part of that. I'm just out in the forefront, but everybody's part of that. I want to encourage everyone and explain to everyone what's happening. We may have a small congregation in number here, but God doesn't need a big numbers, right? He says he takes the weak to do what he needs to do. He doesn't need the noble and so on and so forth. That's in Romans, by the way, if you want to read it. So we're here spreading the message of the new covenant. Okay, justification by faith, not by works. Okay, not the law. Okay, that's what our church is about. So I want to welcome everybody. So 3 months before I went to Uganda, Steve McCaffrey, the president of my company, Metro, called me at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. And of course, I answered the phone. I always do. He even thanked me. He said, John, you really answer the phone? I said, I know, I answer the phone 100 times a day. I know that gets on people's nerves, but that's what I do. So he said, I really appreciate it. He said, what are you doing Monday and Tuesday? I'm like, same thing I always do. I'm going to work. I got work to do, and I got meetings planned, this and that. He goes, how about going to a roofing conference in Oklahoma City? And I know some of you heard this. I've been talking about this for a while, but if you haven't, and if you have, you hear it again. So I said, yeah, you buy, I'll fly. Let's go. So he got tickets to go to Oklahoma, went to Oklahoma. 3,000 people in Oklahoma City. It's a new conference center, roofers and all kinds of engineers and everything. They got 200 vendors. And I'm walking around the second day, and I see this big banner. And the banner has got all these African kids on there. And I'm like, what is this? So I asked the guy, what's going on here? Eric Mills. He's a pastor. And his father was a roofer. So he grew up roofing. Okay. And then he became a pastor. And he said, this is Faces with Names. He said, I support orphanages. Where at? In Uganda. I'm like, you're kidding me. He goes, no, I go to Uganda. How many times have you been in Uganda? At least a dozen times. I'm like, really? When you going next? March 24th. I said, I'm in. Can I go with you? He goes, sure. And this was right around March 1st. Okay. 3 weeks before. And I said, I'll go. And I was looking for a time to go. I wanted to go 2 years before. I even had my shots. I had my yellow fever shots. I had all my shots and everything, but it never worked out. So Lord's timing is everything. I could tell you this was the Lord's timing. What are the chances I meet a guy that's working in orphanages in Uganda at a roofing conference in Oklahoma City when I live in Florida? I said, you understand, that's not a coincidence. Okay. I don't believe in the coincidences. So anyway, so he was helping me get my visa and stuff. I had most of my stuff. I bought my tickets. It was like $2,600. And so I bought the tickets to go. And Xavier drove me to the airport, and 4 hours before, because the TSA stuff, I thought I had to be there really early. I got there 4 hours early. I didn't have my visa. So I can't, I tried to get my ticket. So we're not going to give you a ticket unless you have your visa. You need to get a visa in Uganda. So Eric was working on it, and Pastor Cogwood down there in Africa was working on it. And I didn't have it. I'm like, Eric, I'm in trouble. I called my wife. She said, oh, good. Maybe you don't have to go. And Brenda didn't want me to go. I just let you know. She was afraid I was going to get malaria or get eaten by a lion. She didn't know. And of course, Xavier made her feel very good, because Xavier said, Mom, don't worry. We're having dinner a few nights before. Don't worry. If Dad gets kidnapped, I already researched. I know where to buy the guns, and I know the contractors to hire. All I need is about 5,000 US cash, and I can get that if he gets kidnapped. Okay, that made her feel real good, right? Okay. Anyway, so he does stuff like that. He was serious too. I mean, he wasn't joking. So anyway, so I'm at the airport. I don't have my visa. I called Brenda. I said, I may not be going. She said, good. I said, okay. I called Pat. She works for me. I said, Pat, you better pray, because I may not be going. So she prayed right then and there. She was praying. An hour later, I look at my email. Guess what? My visa's there. So I walked up to the ticket counter and I said, hey, I got my visa. She goes, how'd you do that? I said, God made a way. And she said, where there is no way. That's a song, right? God made a way where there is no way. Okay. And I said, yeah. So then I bought a 36-inch duffel bag, put all the stuff in, I'm bringing to the kids. I put it on the counter, and she said, you're 3 pounds over. I said, no, I'm not. She said, yeah, you're 3 pounds over. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm 3.5 pounds over. I waited. Don't worry. I know I'm 3.5 pounds over. She goes, well, you need $100 or you need to remove something. I said, I'm not doing either. She said, no, you got to do either. You're not going to let you on the plane. I said, no, they're going to let me on the plane. I opened the bag up and I said, what do you want me to take out? She goes, well, you take whatever you need. I said, I'm not taking anything out. I said, I got 170 toothbrushes. I got 4,000 Tylenol pills. I got 24 bars of soap. I got 170 toothbrushes, 150 pairs of eyeglasses. These are for orphans. I got 200 pairs of socks and 200 pairs of underwear for little girls. So what do you want me to take out? You tell me. I'll take it out and we'll get on the plane. She calls over her supervisor. I said the same thing to the supervisor, and she looks at me. She goes, just go. Just go. I knew I wasn't going to pay $100. And I wasn't taking anything out. Or you're responsible, okay, if some kid doesn't get her socks. Anyway, so I got on the plane. And the whole thing was, it was like a miracle, the whole trip, okay? I'm in the first flight. I had to fly up to Newark, New Jersey from Florida, then go to Brussels because I got a late flight. I had 3 stops. So I'm in Brussels, 2-hour layover. I walk over, and there's this big guy. I thought he was a basketball player or something. And from Virginia Beach, I found out, him and his wife. I said, I'm sitting over here. I'm not standing in line. So I sat over and we're talking. And I said, where are you from? Virginia Beach. What are you doing? He goes, I'm going to Uganda. I said, me too. And he said, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm speaking at a conference, a Christian conference. I said, me too, And he goes, I said, what do you do? I asked his wife, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Oh, I work for USA Insurance. I said, you're an adjuster? She goes, yeah. I said, me too. What are the chances of this, right? I said, I'm a public adjuster. She said, I've been wanting to be a public adjuster for 10 years. I said, I'm your guy. Yeah, you're going to work with me. They're both working with me now. I recruited them both. They went to, anyway, they're getting licensed with me. He's a supervisor or something for a school system in Virginia Beach. Okay. And he's a pastor. Guess what? He builds radio stations and television stations and things. He's really a great guy. So when I was I said, give me the name of the conference and I'd like to go see you because it's in Kampala, the city. I'm in Kampala. I thought he ghosted on me after the 3rd day. He didn't text me, nothing. Here's what he said. He texted me, he said, John, you shouldn't come. This church isn't right. What does he mean by that? I know what he means because Mark Agabo looked up the church and the pastor and everything, and they're like, he said it's not a good church. They're big fancy stuff. They have hundreds of people, at church and thousands of people and a big TV station, but it's not right with God. He didn't even preach that time. So I met him on the way back. I drove up to Virginia Beach. I met him and his wife. We had a great discussion. He's going to be working with us, by the way, on different things. So this happened time and time again. This stuff happened. I'm at the African village. I'm staying at the African village, and it's a beautiful place. It's about 40 years old. The lady's 85 that started it, German lady, and it's a big complex. It even has a swimming pool. The only swimming pool probably 200 miles away, and so nice place. So Brenda was a little upset with me because not upset, but she's just curious. She's a wife, right? She says, "John, how much money are you spending there?" Because she knows I'm spending some money. I'm buying medicine for kids and this. I said, "Brenda, we went out to dinner in West Palm Beach the night before with two of her friends that came up from East Brunswick. It was $440 for dinner for four. I'm here 13 days. My bill for 3 days a meal, 3 days for food, and 13 nights stay was less than $400. So if anybody wants to go to Uganda, it's very inexpensive once you get there. Anyway, so I'm talking to people at the African village. I made so many contacts. The first couple I went to was this guy. He's a Ugandan guy, black guy. She's white. They're from Switzerland. Beautiful family. I walked up. "Hey, what are you doing here?" We're talking. And I said, "What's your MO? What are you doing here?" She said, "We want to invest in agriculture." I'm like, "I'm your guy." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm working with Faces with Names, and you're going to see that on the screen shortly. Dove Church, they have 20 acres. They're building schools. They got 400 kids, and they got 15 acres of farmland. They're looking for $60,000 for farm equipment because right now they got 20 people growing the food for the kids, 400 kids. So that's what they do down there. They buy land, then they use the farm to feed the orphans, 400 kids." And I said, "We're all about agriculture. I got two other places. Johnson wants to buy 3 acres and farm it for the kids. He's got 286 kids there." So that's what they do. So I thought she ghosted on me. I just got a text from her yesterday. She said, "Sorry it took so long, but I'd like to talk to you." Okay. They're from Switzerland. So they want to invest. I met doctors there. I'm driving out of the African village. Johnson and I, we're going to see another orphanage. And there's a guy walking by, he looked like a hippie, I said, "Hey, where are you going?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going over to the conference here. It's a prosthetic. They make prosthetics for, for amputees." And he's a doctor, this guy. I said, "Jump in. We'll take you over. It's about a mile and a half the road." He said, "Thank God," because the ambassador for Uganda or something is going to be speaking there. And I would have been late. So I dropped him off. So we're talking. And I said, "Where are you from?" "From Germany." He's a plastic surgeon, this guy. So he gets out of the car and I said, "What do you do? Where do you live?" "I live in Cologne, Germany." I said, "I'm going to Cologne. I'm going there next week. Let's have a cup of coffee." So that's the way the whole trip went. I'm meeting people left and right. I met another guy from Dusseldorf, a doctor. Well, he wasn't a doctor. He sells medical equipment. So we were helping set up some medical clinics and infirmaries in Africa. So these are all great contacts. You understand how that works? So anyway, I just want to give you a little bit about what happened. And it's been happening. It happened time and time again. So I want to bring the actual mission trips or the mission projects to you and show you what we're doing in Africa. Okay. And then I have a little message for you. It's a gospel message. Okay. And because I did preach twice, there's a scripture verse in 1 Peter 3:15, not 4:15. And it says, "Be ye ready always to share an answer of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." So you got to be ready. You got to be ready. So when they asked me, they said, "We'd like you to speak at the first place I was at. There's 100 people in the small church, village church." I'm like, "Okay." So I had 45 minutes, so I used all of it. And I shared the gospel message and so on. And I had a translator. Then I was there again in the village, and they asked me to pray if I could speak. And I spoke for another 45 minutes, and I shared the gospel with them. Very simple message. I didn't have my Bible. I had nothing with me, but I was pretty ready. I think we did a pretty good job. So anyway, I'm going to share that message with you guys. So Project Uganda, there's multiple missions, and I can advance the slide because I got this clicker here. I think. Yeah, there you go. So we have 7 missions that I'm looking at, and I'm going to get through this real quick. I'm not going to read everything. If you want it, I can send it to you. This building here behind The first guy is that's Pastor Johnson, Agre Kagabu, Asime Johnson. I call him Johnson for short. Anyway, that's Mark Agaba. That's me, and that's I think the superintendent of his school. This building was built 6 years ago for 26 kids, and it was about 60 grand because Johnson had the property. They built the building, and then they had to build a perimeter wall with iron gates and stuff. There's a lot of regulations, because there's a lot of funny business that goes on. So they want to protect the kids. They're all about protecting the kids. Oh, I'm sorry. So then, that's in Mabara, Uganda. That's about 2 hours in travel time, U.S. travel time, but it's 5 or 6 hours in travel time in Uganda. By the way, the roads there, we were driving at night. I told Mark, this is like being on, you know what, in Disney World, the moon ride, what's that called? Space Mountain. It's like going to Space Mountain. They go on these roads. Unbelievable. I mean, my wife she gets nervous when I'm driving. She would have a nervous breakdown over there. I mean, it's really wild. So there's about 10,000 of these bodas. A boda is a motorcycle, and there's 3 lanes on all the major highways, and half of them are dirt, and they pass in the middle lane. And they got a lot of big trucks there. It's pretty wild. Anyway, so this is Mercy Child Samaritan Care Uganda. That's where it all began, in that one building. Now he's got 3 buildings and 286 kids in this place, okay? And we helped Johnson build the first building. There's 3 structures and so on and so forth, okay? So then his 2 hours away, there's a refugee camp. It was probably 3 hours, and then another hour past that, there's a church, a village church in a school with 99 children. There was 100 3 months before, and the little girl drowned. She was getting water in the swamp. They don't have a well or anything out there. So she's going into the swamp to get some water, and she fell off a ledge, and it was flooding, and she drowned. Now there's 99. So we're calling it the School of 99 on her behalf. So some of the youngest children we learned needed to be dewormed, and they have a real need for food. He also has 3-acre parcel of land attached to his original school, where there's a 3-story school building that was put up with 20 classrooms. It's called the Skills Center. We're putting together a container to ship over everything is needed to supply the equipment and the items needed for all of the different classrooms. The items needed are from a beauty culture to sewing machines to mechanic equipment, plumbing, electrical, housekeeping, etc. By the way, George, Jimmy Mezzi. Jimmy, we've known him for 50 years. He's an auto body shop. I think he closed the shop. I meant to call him. I drove by there the other day to talk to him because I want to see if he can donate some of the stuff. So if his shop is closed, maybe I can ship his whole shop over to Uganda body shop. Anyway, so electrical housekeeping. These 14-year-old children will learn a skill and then go out into Uganda community and earn a living, and most importantly, share Christ and new covenant living. That's what Johnson's vision is to teach these kids, disciple them, and then they're going to go out and share Christ with people. Isn't that good? Okay. Because people need skills and a job. So that's Johnson's place there. Then we have, these are some of the photos. Oh, the first one over here, up here. Oh, no. All right. I had the first one on the left is me. That's at the outpost. There's 6 classrooms there with 99 kids. And Johnson's pretty slick. He made up a sign. He says, dedicated to John Mesco. So he's a marketer, that guy. Anyway, so that's there. And then the middle upper picture, listen to this. There's a small building by Johnson's first school rather. And it's a masonry building. Those are new intake kids. The police drop kids off for Johnson, and they're homeless, they're street kids, and he's dropping them off, and Johnson takes them in. And so anyway, there's 2 children there. I want you to pray for Josephine and Joseph. Joseph was brought in after 2 months in an incubator. He was born early, 7 months. He's 9 months old now, and there's a woman by the name of Grace. I think that's Grace in the back. And she's taking care of these 2 infants. Another infant they brought her was 9 months old, just born. They brought the police brought it to Johnson. So that's what this little house is. By the way, you want to pray for Grace. I didn't see any problem at all there. I had no problem. I felt very safe. Somebody came in there and beat her with a hammer. She almost died. So we sent over $500 just last week to help with medical bills for her and so on. You know, she's a wonderful lady. She's been with Johnson 14 years raising these kids. Okay. So she's a mom and she has a lot of kids, like 286 of them. How do you like that? Okay. Then the one on the far right is the outpost. That's 3 hours. That's out in the bush. Some of these kids, they never saw a white person. They were afraid of me until you see what I'm handing out there, sodas and lollipops. I couldn't get rid of them after that. Anyway, they were my best friends. Okay. The school down here on the left, we saw that school a year ago. He was hoping he had the first floor done. It's 3 stories high now, 20 classrooms. They're putting the roof on, but they're using the classrooms now. It's phenomenal. Matter of fact, this picture right here. You see the sewing machines, Barbara? What kind of sewing machines are they? I went to her house the other day. She's got 10 sewing machines to give me to put in the container to bring over to the seamstress class. She teaches seamstress. I'm trying to get Barbara to go with me so she can teach class. What do you think, Barb? I don't know if Steve will let you go. Anyway, the one on the far right is the school, and those are volunteers. They volunteer to teach these kids. So in that outpost school, the way it works is most of them they're all orphans, I think. A lot of them are orphans, most of them, or street kids. He takes them in, teaches them during the day. Then in the little village, he sends them back to the village, and people foster those kids at night. You know, they let them sleep there and so on. Then he sends them back to school. That's the way it's run. So anyway, that's Johnson's gig. That's mission 1. So he's looking to buy 3 acres next door and plant it so that they can feed the kids, which is pretty good, you know. And land's surprisingly expensive there. It's like $10,000 an acre, which is a lot to me, you know, for down there. I thought it'd be $500 an acre or something. Anyway, but those are in cities. Kampala's a city. Mark Agabu, Ambrose Agaba, he's the guy that spoke this morning. Mark, this is what I wrote about you. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Mark's planting churches in the bush where most communities have no electric, running water, no bathrooms, no showers, no kitchens, but people do survive. Mark goes out there 4 days at a time every quarter, and he uses his own money. Costs about $300 to go out there for 4 days because he buys stuff for the kids, he buys medicine and stuff, but he uses his own money. We're going to take on Mark as supporting him now. He's going to be our guy, okay, in Africa. And I told Mark, I said, Mark, for us to find a guy in the U.S., a white guy, to go out there like they normally do and support missions, it would take us 15 or 20 years to make the connections that he's got. But Mark's our guy. He's well vetted out. He's a great guy. He's a tremendous guy. He's overseeing all of these projects for us. He's our boots on the ground. Mark's most important mission is to discipleship of believers in the way of the cross, New Covenant grace teaching. We're bringing medical supplies and are hoping to start several very small medical infirmaries that will be run by volunteer nurses to distribute medicine. Mark is also our GCC supported mission, overseeing all projects, and he's our boots on the ground, like I said. Mark's a great guy. I spent days with him in the car over a bumpy road. Oh my God. Anyway, all right, mission. Oh, that's mission 2. So that's where I was preaching on the upper left at the village church. Now, when Mark goes out there and these guys go out there, you know, there's no showers. You know, you take a army shower. You know, the guys used to tell me they use their helmets and take a shower from their helmet. You know, and that's what they do out there. There's no running water. Okay, and then there's no electric. You know, of course, and nothing like that. But the one on the right, they made me food. I said, Mark, can I eat this stuff? Am I going to get sick? He said, no, you'll be okay. I ate it. I didn't get sick. I didn't get sick once there. Okay, so food was good. Those are the kids. You see, there's a balloon there. I threw out a balloon and they went berserk. They never saw a balloon. They had so much fun. I had about 150 balloons. I handed them all out. They were going nuts. That's Mark Agabu on the left, and that's Johnson on the right. So at this time, I'm going to talk about what I spoke about there. And we know when somebody asks you to speak, what are you going to say? You better know what to say, because it says, be ready always to give an answer of the hope that's in you with meekness and fear. I said, okay, I'm ready. So I spoke for about 40 minutes or so. I had a translator. and I gave a simple gospel message. So John 3:3, John 3, chapter 3. You all know it, okay? And I'm going to do it again. Nicodemus came to Jesus by night and said, hey, we know you're a teacher from God, because nobody can do these signs and miracles unless God is with you. And Jesus said what to him? You must be born again, or you'll never see the kingdom of God. And Nicodemus was confused, because he said, what do you mean? Since it's Mother's Day, must I get into my mother's womb again and be born again? And Jesus said, no, Nicodemus, use your head. Come on. He said, look, when the Spirit comes upon you and you're born again, the Spirit comes upon you and the wind blows. You can see the papyrus or the dirt or the papers, but you can't see the wind, right? You don't see wind. You see the effects of the wind. So is everyone that's born again. The Spirit comes and dwells you, and now you're born again. You must be born again or you'll never see the kingdom of God. So I just shared that with somebody the other day, about a week ago, because she thought she was saved. And I said, well, are you born again? She goes, I don't know. What do you mean? And then I shared this same thing with her. Christ said, unless you're born again, you can't see the kingdom. So you better be born again or you won't see the kingdom, right? So I shared this with the group there. And I think most of them were saved, okay? And, I shared some other verses, like I love Titus 3:5 because I share that a lot. It's very direct. It says, not by works of righteousness, which we have done, but according to his mercy, he saved us. We're not saved by what we do. Okay. It's not about doing, it's about being. Okay. So by grace, you've been saved through faith, and it's not of ourselves. It's a free gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Because what do most people say? If I asked the woman, I said, if you're standing before God and God, what would you say to God to let you in? And she said, well, I try to do the best I can. I try to treat people well. And I said, those are works. It's not by works of righteousness, which we've done. It's according to his mercy. It's by faith that you're saved, not by works. Okay. Not anything you can do. Okay. It's a free gift of God. So Jesus in that passage of Nicodemus said, if you believe, you're not condemned. But if you believe not, you're condemned already, because you have not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. So look, everybody in their life, every piece of flesh on this earth has to make a decision whether they know it or not. So somebody has to tell them, because Paul said, how are they going to hear if they don't have somebody's there not to tell them? So we got to be able to tell people this, okay? Everybody that lives on the earth it says to be absent from the body to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But it also says that if your name's not written in the book of life, guess what? You're going in a lake of fire. So you better know that your name's written in the book of life. And how do you know that? By faith, by understanding who Christ is and what he did. So I explained that to the woman. I explained it to these people. Who is Christ? And, they say, oh, he's the Son of God. He's this, he's a Savior. I said, okay, Jesus said, why do you think, let me ask you this. Why do you think the Jews took up stones to stone Jesus? Because he said he was God. They said, that's blasphemy. You're making yourself equal with God. He said he's God. So how can some of these other, I'm not going to mention, other religions say, oh, Jesus is just the Son of God. He's not God. Oh, yes, he is. He said he was God. That's why they're going to stone him. Okay. So anyway, they say, okay, he's the Son of God, but he's also God in the flesh. In the beginning was the Word was with God. The Word was God. And this word, verse 14, chapter 1, John says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the only begotten of the Father. So who is Jesus? Jesus is God in the flesh. We cannot see God the Father. He's a spirit, right? But we can see God in the flesh. That's Jesus, okay? And he was seen of the 12. He was seen by Mary and Martha or whatever at the stone. He was seen, it says, among 500 brethren at one time. He was seen of 120 in the upper room. So we got a lot of eyewitnesses, okay? Jesus was here in the flesh after he rose, and after he died, he was buried, and he rose again, and then he showed himself, right? Remember Thomas? Thomas said, wait a minute, how do I don't believe, doubting Thomas, doubting Thomas. He said, put your hand in my side. Okay, that's where he got speared. Remember Jesus on the cross? Okay, he said, oh, and then what did Thomas say? You're my God and my my Savior, or whatever he said. I'm ad-libbing a little bit. So, but he believed that was Jesus. Okay, so Jesus is who he is and what he said he is, and why? Because he had to die on the cross, perfect sacrifice. Simple as that. We believe. Okay, so that's the gospel. Gospel is very simple. He died, he was buried, and he rose again. 1 Corinthians 15, right? 3:5, something like that. Yeah. 1-4. Okay. That's what Paul said. Paul, that's the gospel. Nothing more, nothing less. Everybody wants to add to the gospel. You got to do this, you got to do that. You got to go to church 3 times a week. You got to say your Hail Marys and this and that. No, it's not anything like that. It's simple. The gospel's simple. He died, he was buried, and he rose again. You believe that, guess what? You're in our group. You're saved. To be absent from the body, you're going to be present with the Lord. Like I tell everybody when I leave them, here, there, or in the air, I'm going to see you again someday, okay? Anyway, so that's the message I shared with this group. And, I think most of them were saved, but they heard it from me. Anyway, that's the message. That's a gospel message. Learn how to share Christ with people. I tell everybody, you got to learn how to share Christ with people. Do you think it's an important decision? It's a lifetime. It's a matter of life and death. Okay, the gospel is a matter of life and death. You need to share it with people, and it can't be forced, obviously, but people will let you know. I got picked up in Paris. By the way, I was in Europe for a week. A Muslim, but a driver, and I knew he said. I said, "Where are you from? Morocco. Are you Muslim?" Yeah. I said, so do you mind if I share a few things with you? I shared Christ with him. He came that close. He said, well, I'm not a very religious Muslim. I said, that's good. Okay. And I said, so let me share something with you may never have heard. And I shared the gospel with him. I said, so why wouldn't you make a decision right now? He said, I'm seriously thinking about it. I got the guy's name and number. I'll contact him. I want to see if he got saved, if he prayed for salvation. I said, so anyway, just be ready always. That's what Peter said. Be ready always, right? Okay, that's enough of that. I'm going to go into the mission now, the other missions, and then sorry if I talk fast. I got a lot to say. Okay, so here's Mark, and then those are the pictures. I'm going the wrong way, I guess, right? Where are we? Next one. Okay, here's the third mission. Hey, Pastor Job, you there? Yo. Pastor Job. Okay, yes. Good. This is you. And your wife's name is Esther, isn't it? Yes. Your wife's name is what?
Esther.
Esther. All right, I was right. Okay, I had it. Last 10 o'clock. I'm thinking about what was her name again? I got it. Esther. Okay, there's Esther. And then there's Pastor Job, and there's me, and the one to the right. Who's the one to the right anyway? I don't know who that is. He photobombed us. I don't know who that is. All right.
So Pastor came in our photo.
Oh, do you know that person?
Yeah, I know him.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that's good then. All right. On the lakes of Lake Victoria, on the shores of Lake Victoria. This is where Job grew up, but I think his church is actually 20 kilometers away. I got used to using kilometers. Anyway, it's about 15 miles. Anyway, so his vision, he sent me a full summary of his mission and so on. There's a lot more to it, but I just abbreviated it. So his vision is for evangelism, healing sick, discipling, reaching vulnerable children, communities, and with Samaritan actions of love and impact the souls. You think that's a good mission? I do. Okay. Hey, Job, how old are you anyway? 30? Yeah, Job. Pastor Job, how old are you?
Yes, 30.
30. I thought he was 30. 30. Yeah. Yeah, Joe Fox is on. He just turned 32. He's from Long Island. Okay, he's going to Africa with me too, by the way, Joe. He said he's going. All right, mission to prepare a body of holiness and righteousness in these these end times day. Yeah, and that's in Mayungu district in Uganda, over by the lake shore of Lake Victoria. I wanted to go to Lake Victoria because I want to see the falls. I never got to see the falls though, but I saw some other falls. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. And then There, I'm on the shores of Lake Victoria. This little kid photobombed us too, but I took my shoes off and I walked in the water. I told Pastor Job, when we come back in November, Lord willing, I want to preach a Bible message. We're going to get the whole village together. We're going to get 100 people together. I'm going to preach a Bible message. We need a good microphone and a portable speaker. And I'm going to preach a Bible message. And I say, what hinders you from getting baptized? And you know who said that, right? That was the Ethiopian eunuch. He was the first African American that got, or not African. He was the first African that got saved in the Bible. Chapter 8 of Acts, Philip. Okay. And he was reading Isaiah, you know, and Philip went up to him, what are you reading? And he told him about the gospel. He said, and then the Ethiopian eunuch said, what hinders me from going down in the water and getting baptized? So that's what we're going to do here. We want to. So I told Job he needs 5 real strong guys with spears to circle around us. So if I'm dunking people, we don't get an alligator or hippo coming up on us. Okay. Anyway, so we want to baptize people that day when they get saved. Those are all the kids. By the way, those signs, I think they say Daddy John or something like that. They prepared for me. Okay. And those are the kids, the rest of his class down there. So those are some of the kids. He's got about 30 kids, and his wife is teaching them and discipling them in the way of Christ. Okay. Of course, she's teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they're always also teaching them about Christ. Here's the 4th mission. Now, this is Daniel Kagwa. Faces with names, Eric Mills. Okay, Eric got tied up with Daniel Kagwa in 2017. What? Oh, Eric's on? I asked him to get on. Hey, Eric, you there? Eric's in Oklahoma. You're going to have to correct me or edit me if I got something wrong. First of all, I see they spelled Daniel Kagwa's name wrong. K. Come on, K. All right. Faces with Names is a nonprofit supporting the Hosanna and Church of the Dove projects with 400 orphans and children. Daniel Kagwa, it's K-A, she spelled it wrong there, heads this organization. He's a well-respected pastor in Uganda. He founded 286 churches in 5 countries and has been in America 30 times. This organization has about 20 acres with several new buildings going up. They're looking to raise money to put in a medical clinic and are getting equipment to farm 15 acres right now. The 15 acres feeds 400 children a year. They're also planning to install a 200-foot deep well to supply clean water for the entire project and the neighboring community. Now, the first 2 days I was there, I was just walking around looking at this place. The second day, we met with the Minister of Water and Environment for this country of Uganda. And we met with an engineer, hydraulic engineer, and a geologist, because they're looking to dig a well, 200-foot well, clean water. They only have hand dug wells, 25 feet deep, and that water, that's got to be boiled. Okay. Anyway, so we looked all around. We found a place up at the top, but they want to buy a little coffee plantation, 3 acres, and they're going to put the well up there. About maybe a quarter mile down the road, they got the farm. And all the guys are talking about, well, we're going to dig another well and this and that. I'm like, wait a minute. I got a saying. If it's free, it's for me. Okay. So I said, gravity is free. You put a 2.5-inch pipe, PVC pipe from that well up top, you're probably 10 meters above, 30 feet drop in elevation. Let the water come down here. You put it in a tank, and then you water the field with that. They said, yeah, that's a good idea. I said, what do I know? I'm not an engineer, but I know pipe, right, George? Anyway, I know water, hydraulics. So anyway, they agreed. We'll see what happens. So that's one of the first buildings they built on the left. This is a dormitory for, I think, 150 boys. Then they have another one for girls. The picture to the lower left, I think that's Mark on the lower left, and then that's the geologist. The third one over is Pastor Daniel Kagwa. Eric is the guy in the dark blue shirt. And then the guy on the right, Eric contacted him. He's been going to Uganda for a while, but he's a farming expert. This guy set up a farm with 65,000 acres for American Indians in Oklahoma. You think he knows about farming? Yes, he does. So he's helping set up these farms in Uganda. So he's one of our consultants. And then there's one of the classrooms there. These kids are smart over here. I had 13-year-olds studying physics. I said, how about chemistry? I failed chemistry in high school. I was 17. I said, and these kids they got physics and chemistry at age 13. They're bright kids, you know? So anyway, so this school, by the way, I want to mention this. He's more or less training a lot of these kids to go into upper education, universities and stuff. They'll be running the country 10 years from now, potentially, okay? And they're Christians. How do you like that? So he's doing a great job here. He's got 400 kids. He can grow to 1,000 kids. They have enough room there right now. In Uganda, about 30% of the population is born-again believers like us. 30% are Catholics. 20% are Muslims. And 20% are cultic Voodooism, witches. There's a lot of them over there. Next door to Mark's house, I drove by, and there's a building, and they had two 20-foot gates open. And there's 25 guys in white robes, and they were sacrificing. They were putting spells on Mark and his family, but they can't get through to Mark because they're afraid, because they don't know who Mark's ghost is. We know whose ghost Mark has, right? He's got Jesus, so he doesn't worry about that. Now, you may think this is nuts, but that happens there. I knew of a guy 40 years ago. He went to Benin, Africa. He's him and his wife, they're white, and they went down there. He was 20 years old. He had 7 kids, 30 years, 97% cultic voodooism. It was all witches and stuff. Now he's got a university, a college, a Christian college there in Benin, Africa. How do you like that? So he was there 30 years. I haven't talked to him in a while. All right, so the 5th mission is Rebecca and Zechariah. Very short description, but I met these guys. That's the African village. I just walk up to people and talk to them. I said, what are you doing here? We started talking. And Rebecca and Zechariah founded an orphanage in January this year, and they have 80 children in 6 months. They have all the basic needs of any new project. We're vetting them out now at this time. I met them at the African village. Nice couple. I think they're good people. So they were a little off in their doctrine, I could tell you, because this is Pastor Israel. Pastor Israel is to my left, sitting in the chair. This is after Easter Sunday. I heard him preach. Well, let me read it. I heard Dr. Israel preach on Easter Sunday morning at the African Village. He was a very dynamic speaker and shared the truth of the new covenant and grace. I met with him after church at the cafe for about an hour and a half. He was surprisingly humble and laid back because he was such a dynamic preacher. It was dynamic. What can I say? I met with him the next day in his office, and he shared with myself and Mark Agabu that he had a desire to go to, for the past 20 years, to come to America and share with the African black churches that he seems that he understands to be off base, which a lot of them are. I know that. He hasn't even written, and so not only black, but all the churches, okay? He's written a book about this topic. He sent it to me electronically. One of my goals is to help him get to America and introduce him to many black churches so that he can teach the way of the cross. Okay? You see, a lot of these churches, they'll listen to me, they'll hear me, but they won't listen. This guy is a PhD. He's from Uganda, very smart guy. He's black. They'll listen to him. I can get him into these churches. 2 weeks ago, I went out to dinner with Xavier and Veronica and Brenda to this place, and the place was packed. I walk in the front door. Who's next to me? A little short guy, black dude. He was the pastor of the church. They said they're having a 75-year anniversary, and that's why they're there having dinner together. I said, well, isn't that wonderful? I just went to Africa, to Uganda. I'd like to share the mission with you. He said, we'd like to have you. I got his name and number. When I go back to Florida, I'm going to share some of this with him, okay? So anyway, see, my idea is that a lot of people want to give, but they don't want to get screwed, okay? Because a lot of these nonprofits and so on, you hear about all this fraud. 80% of the money that goes to a lot of these places are used for administrative costs, quote, administrative costs. I can tell the people I'm going to, I'm not taking a penny. Every single penny that I raise is going directly to the kids, okay? I pay my own way. I'm not even taking air flight. I pay my own way. And that's just the way I do it, okay? I just want you to know, nobody's going to steal your money. It's going directly for the cause. So if you want to give, it's going to go to the right places. So one of my goals is to raise $250,000 by November to bring it back. Put a container together. I will use that money for that and several other things, but it's eventually going to all the kids, okay? our small congregation can effectively reach tens of thousands of people for Christ. Okay, can you imagine that? We can change. I believe we can change the communities in Uganda and East Africa. When Johnson came here 6 years ago, we went to Billy Graham's museum, and we were like in tears too. We were there for an hour, walked in and out. He goes, John, I'm going to be the Billy Graham of Uganda. I said, okay, that's good. And he's got the energy. He's only 40, so he can do that. So we'll see. We're working with him. We're helping disciple him as well. So anyway, and the guy next to him, the young guy, is Gaylord. And I know the Lord put him in front of me because I thought he was somebody else. So we just sent him about $250 because he's got to finish the university there. He's finishing school. He's going to be an accountant. So I told him, we'll hire you. We need a bookkeeper because I'm starting 2 businesses there. Anyway, so he's tremendous, this guy. Okay, all right. So that's that. Now, okay, so that was mission 6. Mission 7 is business development in Uganda. What is that? I see so much opportunity there. It's incredible. I just found out that Mark Agabu, who's been hanging out with us for a number of years, is an auto engineer. He does audits in factories and things, you know. I don't have a picture of it. I might have a picture of it. Let me see. But he spent 3 days putting together a business plan, business concept. So just real quick, he prepared it, okay. Draft based on our initial concept notes. We talked about it for several hours. Integrated automotive commercial hub in Uganda. Business name is Auto Mall Uganda. Auto Mall Uganda will be a modern automotive business complex designed to become a one-stop center for vehicle-related services, retail, rentals, and commercial operations in Uganda. The project will have a combination automotive sales and services and rental spaces, office spaces, apartments, parking, and support businesses. Facility will serve private vehicle owners, transport operations, corporate fleets, insurance companies, spare parts dealers, mechanics, and automotive entrepreneurs. So I think the Lord prepared me for this because George, remember Parji Viciano? Parji Viciano, we built a pool for him about 40 years ago. He called me about 10 years ago. I helped him for free. His daughter was buying a house in Freehold. Anyway, and I just said, don't worry about it. I worked on the purchase of his house, his daughter's house and all that. Anyway, I inspected it for him. And Parji is one of the largest auto parts dealer in New York, in Brooklyn, wholesale. So he's going to help me, I think. Okay, he doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to call on him. So I'm calling all my favors back, okay? And anyway, I wanted to help him. Tell him I want to put together the auto parts to ship over there and have an auto parts store. Most of the vehicles are Toyotas, and they have to go to the Toyota dealer, which I think they rip people off there. So anyway, that's we have a 5-page summary here I'm not going to go into. But anyway, there's some more vision statement to become, Uganda's blah, 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 Anyway, and then the next business is Numa Travel and Services. Let me explain to you how that happened. So we went on a safari for 3 days with Eric Mills. That was a great safari, right, Eric? I was going to go myself, and Eric said, no, I won't let you do that. I'm glad he went. We had a good time. And we stayed at a very nice resort right on the Nile River. We took a boat ride up the Nile River. We saw crocodiles, hippopotamus, all that, water buffalo. It was great. Then we saw the falls, the largest falls, I think, in the world, the most water going over that falls. It's called, I'll come to it later. Anyway, so I was talking to our tour guide, and I vetted him out. He's a good guy. Okay, he's a New Covenant guy. We talked. He's been doing this for 7 years. This is what happened. 9 o'clock at night, we're at the African village. He dropped me off. I said, let's have a cup of coffee. We're having coffee, and I get a phone call. I get a call from a insurance adjuster from California. So 9 o'clock at night in Uganda. What time is it in California? 10-hour difference. Right? So it was 7 in the morning or something, 8 o'clock in the morning. The woman calls me, we're talking about a claim. And I said, well, I'm in Africa right now. I'll be home in a week or two. Why don't we talk then? Oh, you're in Africa. I'd like to go to Africa. Why? I said, where do you want to go? She wants to go to Kenya and and Ghana. I said, what about Uganda? She said, oh, I'd like to go to Uganda too. That's right in the middle. I said, how would you like to go on a safari? I would love to go on a safari. Do you know anyone? I said, yeah, my safari guide is sitting right next to me. She wants to go on safari. Tim Daly, who I'm working with now, he was in the Philippines, Barry, the guy in the Philippines, Tim Daly. He calls me. I'm in Africa, and he says, where you at, John? I'm in Africa. He said, you are? I just got home in New Jersey after 6 months. He said, send me the address. I'll meet you there tomorrow. This is the way this guy, he's kind of crazy. He wants to go to Africa, you know? So I said, how'd you like to go on a safari? He said, yeah, I'd love to go on a safari. I got 4 people that want to take safari already. Okay, so we put together a business plan for the safari business too. Who did that? Pastor Israel. He's a business teacher at the university. So he put together for free, he put together a business plan for this Numa travel. Now, why do we call it Numa travel? I believe it came from the Lord, because I said to Patrick the night that we talked about it, we want spirit travel. That's the name. And I'm thinking about it for 3 days. I'm like, that's not good. Spirit, with the Spirit Airlines going out of business. I don't think we're going to get a lot of business. So Mark calls me. I said, Mark, what do you think of that name? He said, no, call it Numa Travel. Numa means spirit in Uganda. Isn't that something? Okay. So it's Numa Travel and Tourism of Uganda. And okay, objectives. We got business objectives and so on. All right. So now we're going to conclude here. How much time I have, Rob? A few minutes? Okay. Oh, we're going to do a breakout in a minute. But let me finish this first. On the upper left, that's Mark Agabu. That's me. Who's the guy? Oh, that's Dan Kagwa in the middle. Eric Mills and Johnson. We were all eating at the African village. That picture to the right is very interesting. Dan Kagwa built a new building, and that's the kitchen. They put wood. They still cook with wood. There's no gas or anything. So those kettles there are wood burning stoves, and then they cook in the big pots and stuff. That's what that is. On the lower left, that's a hotel we stayed at in Barara. Once we got to Barara, 5 miles from Kampala. That's Johnson and Mark. And then on the right, those are the types of streets we're driving down. All dirt roads, and there's businesses on either side. Pretty interesting. Upper left, there's the village. There's the school with 99 kids, and those are some Longhorns. Pretty neat. They're always walking those around. I asked Mark, I said, by his house, I said, Mark, there's a bunch of Longhorns over there. What do they do with them? He goes, they sacrifice them, the witches. What is going on over there? Okay. By the way, one of the businesses we're going to open next to our body shop and auto shop and parts dealer is a Ugandan car and boda wash, because that's how they wash cars over there. They drive them down into the lake, into the river, and they wash their cars. These are some of the new babies that came in over at Johnson's orphanage. Okay, and then that's me in Paris, because you know what happened? This was by the Lord too. I got to tell you this story real quick. So I missed my flight coming home. I was supposed to go into Brussels. So the next day I took a flight into Paris. I said, just get me to Europe. Get me out of here. I need to get. So they brought me to Paris. I stayed in Paris for a day. That's on the Seine River. Okay. And I went to the Eiffel Tower and all that. The next picture is our new corporate office in Uganda. So Mark has a nice office there. And he said, John, I'm going to give up my office. I really don't need it, I guess, too much. How much is it? $80 a month. I said, I just sent him $160 yesterday. I said, no, we want an office there. Mark is working for me. He's going to write estimates for me. He's saving me 70%, and he's going to make twice as much as he's making now. His wife's going to work for me too. She's a virtual assistant. Unbelievable, right? Anyway, this is all the stuff. The third picture is the stuff I brought in my knapsack. You can see on the right, there's 170 toothbrushes, bars of soap, and this toothpaste up at the top. I got all kinds of stuff I was bringing over there. And then on the left, there's the Eiffel Tower in Paris. I have plenty of other pictures of Europe. I was in 5 cities in 5 days. It was a tremendous trip. I had such a good time. I was by myself, but I saw everything. So why should I go to Amsterdam and lay over for 10 hours? Might as well stay there for a week, right? And that's what I did. I wanted to see Europe. Germany was fantastic. I went down the Mosel River. That's the Napa Valley of Germany, where they make all the Riesling wines and stuff. I went to a castle there that was 800 years old. It was tremendous. That middle picture, everybody, guess how much? 5 pineapples, very good pineapples, golden pineapples, and 100 bananas. Anybody have a guess how much that costs? Less than $2. Okay, yeah, $2. So I was in the store in Publix, and now they really rip us down there in Florida. Pineapples are $4 or $5. It's like $2. Okay, so that's really good. Anyway, we're gonna have a little breakout time, and the breakout. Go ahead, Rob. Do you have a recommendation? Go ahead. Okay, so what I want to do is have a little breakout. We all break out. Everybody on Zoom. We're going to break out into several rooms. 2 rooms, okay? We're going to do a breakout here, and we have discussion. And the discussion is this. I want you to think about what we're doing, like how God is using us as a small congregation, and how we understand that the Spirit leads us, that God is leading us, okay? I'd like you to talk about that. Talk about what it means to you to be led by God, to be led by the Spirit of God, okay? And just, I'd like your opinions on some of this stuff, and tell me what you're thinking. So let's have a breakout. Was there anything else we should discuss, Rob? How will missions affect your Christian life? By the way, anybody that wants to go with me in November, I'm setting it up. I want to bring 12 people with me. Okay. I'll tell you exactly what to do. If it wasn't for Eric, I would never have gone, because he helped set me up. It's not that hard. And you don't have to get a lot of shots or anything. You get a yellow fever shot and the typhoid, but not much else. So, and I'll tell you how to do all that if you're interested in going. It will change your life. It's a tremendous trip. Okay. Uganda is a beautiful place. So